Hello, welcome to the season finale of How's Played D&D, the explained up podcast where one experienced dungeon master and failed scriptwriter discuss D&D topics. My name is Connor Kinsey, and my illustrious guests this week are... Who wants to go first? Make it confusing. Mitchell?
Good morning. My name is Mitchell, and I'm also known on the internet as Good Game, Fair Play.
Good game. G?
Hi, I'm G, and you can find me on Instagram as at ttrp.gee.
Terran?
Howdy, I'm Terran, and I'm everywhere as Contracraft.
Fantastic. This episode is the season finale of the DM season, and we are going to talk about why we DM in D&D. Now, let's get to it. So today's episode is why we DM. If you thought the last 80 episodes weren't enough of me talking about why I DM, then this may bring you to edge. Guests, I've created a one-shot in which I must play 3 different NPCs. 1 is work Connor, 2 is home Connor, and 3 is please God, why do these horrors persist? I just want it to end. Did I just shit my pants again? No, it's the smell of depression, Connor. What am I doing?
Now you're throwing a riddle in our way. What?
This is the unhinged question, by the way, for anyone who needs a marker to step.
You're DMing.
Yeah. Okay. What drove each of you to DM? This isn't the unhinged question. This is actually.
I know. Well, that's the problem is I have to actually answer this one.
Yeah.
Oof. I mean, for me, I think I fell into the same trap as most people, where I just couldn't get enough of like playing, and nobody wanted to run a game. And my first DM, my OG DM, like God bless him, he just got so tired of, putting together the most beautiful, elaborate, heart-wrenching campaigns. He was just like, I need a break. And so when I moved away and I made my way out to the UK, I was like, all right, I'm gonna play D&D. I'm gonna have to do the damn thing myself. And then it just became an excuse to like make other people little people inside of my, world building and lore documents. So,
I mean, I DM currently because the group that I'm in, we're kind of just on a rotating DM kind of situation. So like one person, anybody that wants to, we don't force people into DMing, but anybody that wants to gives it a go each campaign. So, I've played 2 campaigns with this group with 2 different DMs, and now I'm currently the DM kind of thing. However, I fear that I have now just fallen into the forever DM seat with this group, because I think all the other people are like, we don't want to do it, and the 2 other DMs are like, you're better than us. So I'm like, well, great, okay, this is my life now, which is why I'm just in everybody else's D&D campaigns as players, because I know that my group, I'm just going to be DM for the rest of my life now. So
I feel like that is like the famous line of you do it once and someone goes, perfect. You know what? You're the good DM, and you're like, yeah, it's anything to get me doing it rather than you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel the same, Taryn, with that coming over it and then taking on being a DM, that now you're just the DM all the time?
I think what was really nice for me about coming over is because Manchester's got a wonderful D&D society where you can like just drop in, drop out, play different games. And it was I managed to get in just the sweet spot where there was like just enough space to keep playing for a while, and then D&D just became so much more popular, and to the point where it's like there's never any like player spaces, but there's always DM spaces,
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if I want to play the game in any capacity, I might as well just keep running sessions, which I haven't done for a while, to be fair. But yeah, I could definitely see how you play with the same group of people and you're like, I really want to keep playing, but everybody else thinks I'm doing a better job as a DM, so I might as well just be the DM so we can keep the group together.
Yeah. And Mitchell, what about you? Because you run all sorts of games. Are you playing in games, or are you just running them all the time?
So the games that I do play in at the moment are mostly for sort of like online podcast stuff. For DMing, I really love D&D, and about 9 months after starting playing it, I just had this idea for a campaign. I was like, oh, I could definitely run this. And then I found that I really liked playing all sorts of weird NPCs and villains and things like that. But then I also started going like, D&D is pretty neat. Oh, what's this? Vampire the Masquerade. Oh, intricate Call of Cthulhu. And sort of collecting stuff to GM. But so the reason I DM is I like creating worlds and sort of filling them with all sorts of interesting people and things. Or if you're one of my Cult Divinity Lost players, as G was, I just like making people really,
Cry.
really scared. I wasn't going to say cry. I was going to say scared. But
You made me cry like 3 times in the campaign, so well.
it was not intentional. It was just cult is a very intense beast.
All right. So quick fire round. What are the pros and cons of DMing? I know it's down to the personal opinion, and some where I go, oh, I can't stand that. Other people go, oh, I love that about D&D. So,
Mm,
what have we got? Is there a generalized kind of thing that we could all agree on that not a fan of when it comes to DMing?
mm.
That is a
Um,
Homebrew,
tough one.
oh, home,
homebrewing rules. Are you happy with that? Depending on like the
Oh yeah,
situation, kind of thing.
oh yeah.
yeah.
Homebrew's
Yeah.
firmly in the pro category. I
Mm.
feel like, I think anybody who's played D&D enough probably agrees that there's some aspects of D&D that slow the game down and can kind of like make the sessions drag more than they need to.
Yeah.
And so I think homebrewing is just a really fun way to like pick your moments in the game and like, just create really cool opportunities for the players and then speed up certain aspects as well. So I was just going to say really quick, since I said a pro, I'll just get it out of the way. For me, I would say the biggest con of being the DM is there is that little bit of like uh you do it you if you get stuck into it long enough, where you kind of become the forever DM, like you can burn out pretty badly.
Mm.
And so I think what G was saying before, I think that's a brilliant like solution is to like have a group where you have at least a couple of people who are willing to rotate.
Yeah.
Um, because when you play in other people's worlds, I think that's when you pick up some of the best ideas and the best inspiration for
Mm.
to like get back into running your own games. Um, so like I'm very much like in a little bit of a DM burnout period right now.
Mm.
And so I've just been playing in lots of other folks' games, and then now my lore document has filleth over again because I'm just
Mhm.
stealing little nuggets here and there. So
That will be the next question we go on to is about kind of, have there been moments where you guys weren't feeling it, But
I mean, weirdly, I would completely disagree with that as a con. Like, for me, I absolutely love DMing and GMing. I think a good way to avoid that burnout, if you enjoy the creation, is to try other systems as well. Like,
yeah,
D&D is wonderful, but if you're finding that it's a bit difficult, do yourself a little session of, like, a mini campaign of Call of Cthulhu or a couple of games of Paranoia, and you'll often find that ideas from those other systems you'll put into your own world.
mm,
I love DMing. Like, I really love it. I have no problem being the forever DM. Although I have to say, weirdly, one of the things I had the most inspiration for recently was we finished the D&D campaign, and my good friend Ed had bought a new system that he wanted to run a mini campaign in, which was 4 sessions, and it's a system called Tales from Equestria. I don't know if any of you guys know of it.
yeah,
It is the My
yeah.
Little Pony RPG. Now, I know nothing about My Little Pony, but Ed is just this beautiful, creative, mad bastard who just created this insane sort of like British comedy world in the My Little Pony sphere. But it gave me ideas that I could throw in for like a weird town within my D&D setting.
Mm.
So, as I said, I personally love GMing, but I think and DMing, but I think that might be my advice for not burning out with that is to have a look outside of D&D and pull in your little inspirations because D&D is so open now.
Yeah. And G, how is that for you when you're? I mean, we're already kind of going on to the next question now, anyway. But like the if it's kind of like a rotation, do you feel that burnout when you're like 4 or 5 sessions in running a campaign and you go, I'm actually really looking forward to when the next person DMs, or are you like,
Yeah,
no, I'm just gonna get this done and
I mean, I'm
oh, we lost it's
oh
it's dead space. It's got a.
no. I don't know what to do.
I can hear you. You're just like this.
Uh,
You're like the end of like a 90s sitcom, like a
Credit roll.
yeah,
I would say panic.
yes. Um,
Okay, so while waiting for G,
oh,
I can give a
Yes.
little bit of advice to DMs.
yes.
If you ever find a group difficult, there's an easy way to deal with it. Get a gavel. I have a gavel, and it's amazing. You get rowdy players just go, order, order. They all shut up. No one questions a gavel. Sorry, carry on.
Incredible.
My back. Am I
You're
back?
back. You're back. You're back.
You're
Okay,
back.
great. Yeah. So what I was trying to say was, this is like my first time DMing like a long form campaign. I've done a couple of one shots here and there for people, but this is my first time, and I definitely found it. We're in like session 27 now, but that's because my players are just incapable of following a story and have their own agendas all the time.
Every plan.
And I do have periods sometimes when I am like, oh, I'm so excited to, and I think this does kind of come into my pro and my con, in that I think my burnout from it comes from the ability, which is my con, to not be able to invest in one character and like follow that character through a story. Like I really love the character creation and building a character through a campaign, and not getting to do that when you are being a bajillion NPCs and telling a story and building a world, is kind of the thing I miss the most. So I get sad when I don't get to do that, and that kind of feeds into my burnout of being ready for a new campaign. But then on the flip side, my pro of it is getting to watch like 7 people around a table be fully immersed in this world that you've created for like 3 hours, and just like at the end of the session they're all like, that was amazing, that was so great, oh, I can't wait for the next session. And it's like, I've just sat here and like given you a framework to mess about in this world. And like that's the biggest pro for me, is watching them just respond to it so well, and like gives me the like validation that I need as a new DM, learning the ropes and everything. So yeah, it's like, I guess it's like double-sided coin, isn't it? Like, there's elements of the burnout, but then it can be so rewarding that the burnout doesn't feel so bad in the end.
Yeah. I totally agree. Like we actually had someone on for a previous episode where we were talking about character death, and they actually they love doing both, and they are like a walking Wikipedia when you're talking to them
Mm-hmm.
about D&D. But the when they're playing, they actually really like in a campaign dying. And they were like, I kind of
Mm.
like the idea that like the DM knows that they can be safe doing it in any way they want. They know I'm not going to stress about it, and I'm just got 50 characters ready to go. And they like the idea of just not like they've built a character to be a certain way and be ridiculously OP, but instead it's like I get to role play something different. So I don't mind playing 28 sessions and it being like 28 characters. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So that was
Mm-hmm.
quite weird. And with DMing, they don't get that because it's consistent, keeping the world afloat rather than getting to be different every time. So yeah, it's quite an
Mm.
interesting pro and con, I think. Well,
Just
we've kind of
sorry.
covered. Oh, do you want to say
Oh,
something?
yeah, just on that, if that's okay. This is something, now that I've got a group of DMs, I quite like to ask. Have any of you guys ever had a situation where a character is doing really stupid stuff and you are desperately trying not to let them die, but they just keep on going until they're dead?
Oh,
Okay,
mine
cool.
haven't
It's not
died,
just
but
me.
they keep doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Terran actually does that in my real life. Always there to save me from a bad accident.
For sure, for sure. The amount of times I've pulled you off the tram tracks. Um, I think PC death is super underrated because I love a story with a conclusion personally.
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
I love a tidy ending, and sometimes that tidy ending for your character is just they fucking die.
Mm.
Um, maybe not as satisfying for some of my players when they do dumb shit and I try to keep them from dying and then they end up dying, even though I give
Mhm.
them like 7 chances to not die. So yeah, but no, I player character death. Oh, great, love it, big fan.
If
I
you if you like a tidy ending and character death, you have to play Ten Candles because
Have played,
everybody. Oh,
yes,
it's so good. It's just
best. I think anything that you can do to make your sessions feel more like cinematic, whether it's like
Mm.
lighting or I made a prop like not too long ago. I've literally got it on my desk. It's like a thematic like incense burner, which like comes
Mm,
out or when like this person's god is like involved,
nice.
yeah, anything that you can do like that, I love it. Big fan.
I actually cannot remember what I was going to say now.
Sorry.
Oh, I know it was
Sorry.
about the character. It was about like people doing stupid shit, and you're trying to keep them afloat. I've only experienced that when it's players who are ridiculously good players. Yeah, they know all the rules. They'll be the first to tell you to counter you and be like, actually, this is how that goes, or they'll happily ruin the rule of cool because it's not the maths that's in the book, and they make these crazy optimized characters. But because of that, they're always the first to die in the stupidest way, and it's purely because they just go, "I'll go off and do it myself," because they're so confident,
yeah.
and they forget it's a team game. And you've set this up for whatever that, whether it's a puzzle or an enemy, you've set it up for a group of four, right? To have to think
Hmm.
together, let alone work together and combat together. And it's always them who die in mine, and they're always absolutely devastated, not because their character died, but because they lost. Even though it's not a game
Hmm.
where you win, and
Mm.
it, and
Yeah.
and I really enjoy that. Once again, it's the narcissism of like letting someone kind of do something, and you're like constantly stinging them with a nettle till they realize that it hurts.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I see if I had a player who was just like, all right, I'm gonna go and try and like solo this encounter that was built for 4 people. Like I'd be like, okay, this could be really cool depending on how you roll. My thing is that like I've got guys who are just like, no, we just keep killing city guards, and it's like at a certain point, the city starts sending the army after you. I don't know
yeah.
what to tell you. Like you
Yeah.
can't just
Yeah.
you can't just try to
I
hide 6 bodies. Like
Yeah, I had this right at the start of my campaign. It was like literally, I think it was like session 2 or 3. And like this was when me and Mitchell first started talking. And I actually
I
think how
remember
we
this.
got
Yeah.
talking, because I was like, I need some advice from a seasoned DM about how I go about this situation where like literally session 3, my players go to meet a key NPC and they decide to launch a turtle with a vial of acid at this poor NPC's wife or mother and nearly killed her. And because they rolled like a natural 20. So I was like, and she rolled really bad on her dexterity saving throw. So I was like, how do I manage this situation? And in the end I brought in like in-game consequences in that actually they've been banished from the town now. They can't go back there. And they missed out on getting this key information to move the plot on. So they had to go about it a different way. And then they ended up going like to a different area on the map because they were like, right, we need to find a library or something to get information. So then I sent them somewhere else to then send them back again. But that's the thing, is that like you've got players that are just being silly and doing things like that. And it was a new player who's still trying to like, I guess, learn how to play collaboratively, and they just decided to do this. But we're 27 sessions in, and his first response to everything is stab it. So when do they learn?
It worries me in real life what they're doing. Like every situation, like they go for
Yeah.
like a job event where they're like they've got a team build, see if they're worth going to the
Mm-hmm.
getting the job, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I'll just fucking stab them. Like
Yeah, yeah.
every
I don't know.
and
scenario.
just casually pulling out a fucking sword.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Obviously, you can't just go around, stabbing monsters in real life to solve your problems.
That's actually his shoot sword as well. He's got a casual sword just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so do you have any tips for players looking to DM for the first time? Big one. Big one.
Remember that D&D is a competitive game, and what you need to do is win against your players at any cost. They will bring their heart and soul character in. They'll fall in love with. Fuck them.
Yeah. Fuck everyone.
Yeah,
That's all I write at the start of every session.
yeah.
Fuck everyone,
Yeah.
win big.
No, that, but the opposite.
Yes.
Mm.
Those unhinged questions I do in person at events. Many a time people go, "Oh, D&D, I want a free set of dice." They'll come over, and then I'll ask them, I'll ask them for tips, and they always say, "Try to win." And I'm like, I think they're the one they're answering unhinged, like they've beaten me to the point.
Besides trying to win, because obviously that's what he's all about.
Yeah.
I'd say if you're like literally starting out, like never played, never run games before, you probably have like this like big idea of a campaign that you want to run and where you want it to go and like the character arcs that people would go on and all that. Don't do that. Uh, like make a one shot in a small town somewhere in your world, and then try running just like run a pre-written one shot. One of my favorite one shots to run is just like I can't remember what the actual name of it is, but it's the like runaway sheep, or
Well, sheep chase.
and
Mhm.
like and yeah, and literally just just find a pre-written run shot if you've never done anything before. Try running that, see how you like it, see how you would change things, see how it is to run a game with other people who are not going to follow the one shot whatsoever, because nobody ever follows what you're trying to do.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and then build off from there. Because I fully made the mistake of like trying to set up plot hooks for a bigger campaign on the first game I ever ran, and it was messy. I'm
Mhm.
big enough to admit it was messy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
With
Go
sorry,
on.
with that, have you ever heard of the unfolding theory? And it's something that goes into video game design as well as RPGs. And it's the idea of unfolding a piece of paper. So your piece of paper at the beginning starts in a
Okay, yes.
room, then it becomes the floor of a house. Then you unfold it again, it's a house. Then it's a street. Then it's a village,
Mhm.
and you just go like that. And I found that works really well.
Right.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Sort
The
of avoid the pitfalls of what you were saying.
Just quickly going back to that wild sheep chase, I do think it really, but like I have wrote my campaign a year in advance, and I knew the end. Like when I write screenplays, I wrote the ending, and then because that's what I do, that's what I have the idea for, of like imagine this, and then I go, right, how do I get to that point with a script, and then with players, I tried to do that. So, but all I ended up learning from it was keeping the world, understanding the tone, but not you can have those NPCs that are going to do things, but don't put them in at a specific time when you think it will happen. And also to kind of go off that with the wild sheep chase, like it was good to have like that's almost like a one shot or a session zero for your campaign, like you said in that little town, a village, rather than the whole world. Because then you go, right, well, now I know how these players work and how they think. I can kind of rethink my world. With that wild sheep chase, there's a bit in it where there's like obviously there's a wand turning people into like wand of polymorph turning people to animals, and there was apes.
Spoiler alert.
What I did not know, yeah, sorry, spoiler, but it's free. Should have played it already. Um,
It's a free one shot.
it's a free one shot and it's fantastic. But there was a player who I'd never actually had at the table before who like basically joined up at our local store. And she was actually afraid of chimpanzees, and I didn't know that was a thing unless your family been mauled by chimpanzees. So she freaked the fuck out, and I was like, "Are you okay?" I thought she was, it like her face changed so quickly that I thought there was something like mentally going wrong. And I kind of like was like, should we have a break? And then I was talking to her, and it where immediately, as soon as we were like out of the world, she was like a regular person chatting again. And I was like, I don't understand what's going on because it's like we're still sitting in the same room. Like I don't understand. And then it turns out after she's terrified of chimpanzees. And even though they're not there in the room with us, that was enough. She was fully like in her character. And I was like, okay, right. So
Nice.
mental. You never know. You can't read the room sometimes.
Also, Wild Sheep Chase, is that a one shot? Because if it's not, I'm going to steal it.
It's a one shot, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it is
yeah.
a one shot. I didn't know if it was a terminology like a wild goose chase
No, no,
or whether
No,
you actually
no,
meant.
it's like
I
Yeah.
mean,
it's like a free one shot that like everybody pretty much uses when they're like introducing D&D to people because it's such an easy like one like double-sided thing to run.
yeah, and
I
it's
And it's it
colorful. It's fun.
Mm.
I've never
It's
heard of
very,
that, so I'm going to look it up.
yeah, please do, because it's also very easily like customizable because it's like
Mm,
the premise is fun and you can switch things out like quite easily. Like I've done sessions where instead of the wand of polymorph turning everybody into animals, it turns them into enchanted pieces of furniture, you know?
nice.
Like there's so many ways that you can run it,
Mm,
and it's also because one of the things that I love about uh, like running games is introducing people to the game. I love introducing
mm.
something I used to do when I was living in New Zealand was I would run games for families that so like parents who wanted to learn how to play because their kids wanted to learn how to do it. And oh, it's such a great one shot for that. So much
Mm.
fun.
Yeah, it really does like fit the bill for anyone. It's kind of like the MCU of one shots where it's just like the whole family can play it. Everyone can enjoy
Yeah.
it. It's got a bit of everything. And like you said, it's so customizable and it kind of instantly feeds itself into like what you need to roll next and then remember that, oh, that's what I roll quite often when I want to do
Mm,
this.
Hmm.
So I don't know
mhm.
who made that, but you're better than Wizards of the Coast, that's for sure. Everyone's using that rather than the starter
I'm
shop.
gonna bounce off of that actually with my tip, and I was gonna come in with like new DMs for new players,
Mm,
because I quite often find that I am if I'm doing one shots, I'm DMing for brand new players that have never played before,
okay.
and one of my favorite tips to give, and I've given it to other people and they said that it actually really helps, is to like for the first session. Well, first of all, go into it with like barely any expectations because it's never going to go the way you want to. And if you set that
Mm.
standard, you're going to be disappointed in the decisions that people make because it's not following your story, and that's not D&D anyway. That's But aside from that, one of my favorite things to do for a first session is set up a situation where maybe they are in a training ground or they are adventurers doing a training exercise to get them used to mechanics. So my favorite thing that I put in one shots for anybody that's never played before is that they are a part of an adventuring guild and they are doing a training session where there's like however many dummies per person, and they are taking it in turns to just destroy this dummy, and it's got like 7 hit points, and they're just playing around with their spells and their attacks and learning how to roll a d20, add the modifiers and then the damage, and like it gets them into it so quickly in not a high in not a high pressure situation. You're not immediately putting something that's a threat to them in there where they panic and they don't know what to do, and
Mm.
then by the time you're like 6 sessions down the line and you're actually throwing an actual enemy at them to fight, they already know the mechanics of what to do and they're not asking. They recognize their spell list, they recognize what attacks they can do, they recognize how to use bonus actions and stuff, but it's in a controlled environment that but they're still having fun and learning it. And it takes like half an hour at the start of a session, but it's like one of
Mm.
my favorite things to do when players are learning how to do it. And I did that recently with my family's siblings. They all wanted to play over Christmas, and none of them had ever played before, and we did that, and our one shot ended up turning into 2 days worth of play. But by the end of the first day, they knew exactly all of the things they could do, and when they were presented with an enemy to fight, they were like, we know what to do, and straight into it and so excited. But
Nice.
that's like one of my top tips that I tell anybody that's DMing for new players, to try and implement that at the beginning. But it's customizable. You could do anything. You could say that you're in a forest and you're just fighting some trees, cutting down some trees and practicing, or um, but yeah, that's one of my favorite
Well, so
tips.
you successfully introduced a training arc from anime into
Yeah,
D&D.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
two, if you at the end of that 2 days of playing with family, if you didn't use the mannequin as the BBG from the beginning, I would
Oh,
be so pissed off.
I didn't, unfortunately. It was like a whole haunted house situation
Yeah,
where they had to kind of like save the family, but no, it was
love
it
it.
was fun.
That's like that's also a perfect little scenario for like because I love a good level up session, and I
Mm,
think you could do that in between so everybody gets a chance to try out their like you can have a way of introducing the new stuff you can do that's not just saying, well, at level 5 I now unlock like
yeah,
you just
yeah.
do it in a training session.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
perfect. Very good.
Yeah,
Stealing
I've
that. Thank you.
actually I've actually added that into my campaign at the moment. One of my players is playing a sorcerer, a rune child sorcerer, and obviously one of the kind of critical role subclasses that's been brought in, and they're still wrapping their head around the whole subclass and how to work it. So we've actually got a system now where, because rune children in the world of Exandria, I'm running Call of the Netherdeep if that's any consolation, that rune children in Exandria haven't really been that like researched that much. So we've got a whole situation where now every level up that provides a ability change, so extra spells or an extra ability, they have to actually go back to this researcher so that they can like research them more and practice them and learn them. So it's getting them familiar with the things that they can do. And actually, I found that it's really helping this player to be in a situation go, oh, I can't do that yet because I need to charge a rune, but I can charge a rune this way, so I'm going to do this. Whereas before they were like, I can't do anything because I've got no runes charged. And I was like, well, let's learn in the session how to do it rather than me just tell you how to do it. Let's put it in that your character's learning how to do these things, because it's nobody knows how a rune child works. So yeah, I've kind of like molded it in a way to make it in game for them with that like training session, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense because like half of the issue with D&D is it can be slow because it's turn-based, whether that's combat or not. You're taking turns unless you're shouting over each other and you don't have the gabble that Mitch has got. But you took that from the judge when you left that courtroom. I know it. I know it.
This literally has my name engraved on it. It says that Mitch the Mighty and Merciful.
Love it, love it. But yeah, I think like
so good.
A lot of the time you're kind of waiting around and you can see it as a DM that people are like, oh God, when's my turn? And then they take forever on it, or they're immediate and they've not need to think about it. It's like keeping someone occupied by having to think and plan is why they're there really, and it stops them from being bored. Do you know what I mean? If they want to get that thing and you go, right, well then you've kind of got a bit of a problem solving situation to get that thing, or you don't know it yet. So in time, they've got something to look forward to, but they've also felt like their moment to shine was worth the time rather than they've waited 20 minutes. They said their one thing and then it's the next person again, because that's when you get people on their phones or like not wanting to come back or so I think kind of implementing that stuff's good. That's
going off that. This is something, again, room full of DMs, which I never get to do, which is really cool. Phones at the table, I don't mind if they're using it for something like D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with it. But if there's one thing I hate, it's when, particularly within combat or something, or you're explaining something, you look up and it's just like, and someone's bidding on a pair of socks on eBay. And it's just like, I don't know how you guys feel about that or how you deal with it.
I wonder, because like, this is a good conversation to have because there are times where I'm like, am I turning into a crotchety old boomer? And I'm like, oh, these damn kids and their phones. But then also I'm like, well, we all got together on this very limited amount of free time we have as adults.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to help guide a group story. So it would be nice if you weren't looking at TikToks like in the middle of combat, like,
100%.
but also like, can you just, because I know that there are people who preferred, like, I very much like printing out stuff on paper, and because that's how my brain works, I will get distracted by my phone. I'm aware of it, so I put it away. But like, can I, like, I don't know, can you just be like, no phones at the table, like figure your shit out and print it out? Because that also kind of feels mean. Like,
I don't think you should ever be that extreme. Like my partner, who plays D&D with me all the time, he has never felt that maths is the strong point. So she likes D&D Beyond for the fact that she, rather than having to like roll for like the bit, she'll do the smaller ones, but like for bigger rolls and stuff, she much prefers being like, okay, I'm playing a rogue, I've got sneak attack, there's suddenly a load of dice, tap a button, okay, that's my number.
Right, okay.
And I think it's good for things like that and the accessibility. And it can also be handy, if you've got your sheet but you've forgotten a rule book or there's a really specific thing you want to look up quickly, that's fine. But as personally, I like paper sheets as well. So yeah, I think it's finding that middle point, isn't it? I don't know how you feel about it, G.
Yeah, well, I mean, my players, so like all of my players use. We don't use D&D Beyond. We use Fight Club 5, for their character stuff. It's really great. If you haven't used it, it's
no, I've
brilliant.
not heard of it.
Yeah, it is. I'll show you it outside of the 40 minutes that we've got. But they all use it, which does obviously mean that phones are out on the table and whilst you're waiting, you've got the app open on your phone, and then you're waiting for your turn, and you flick onto something else. However, I feel like I'm quite privileged in the sense that the rest of my players will shame somebody if they aren't ready for their turn. So yeah, more often than not, if I'm talking and a TikTok video starts playing very loud because they think they're going to get caught, the rest of the table will shame them to be like, "What are you doing? We're playing D&D." Or
Very good.
if we're in the middle of combat and it gets to their turn and they've been on Facebook Marketplace, they know who they are when I say that. Everyone's like, "Why are you not ready? Why are you not ready? Like, get off Facebook Marketplace," and and stuff like that. So I find that I don't have to be like tough with it, but I think obviously with my setup with my players is that we've got rotating DMs, so there's key people in the group that experience it as a DM too, so don't appreciate it, so they're more likely the ones to bring it up and be like, "What are you doing? Like, respect the DM. We're playing a game right now. You can be on your phone later. Just use it for that kind of thing." So yeah, and I also am an advocate for, like, I love using pen and paper as a player, but I hate when after 2 sessions your piece of paper is destroyed because you've been rubbing out hit points and whatnot and changing things and everything. So I'm very much an advocate for using those apps in that circumstance, but I'll do it on an iPad. So I'll have like my iPad set up here, and then I'll put my phone away, kind of thing. Unless I need to research something, then it's just a quick Google search.
Yeah, I'm we had someone on the Discord server who put that question in the other day about the phones, and it was very hit and miss. But for me, like, I love getting the piece of paper and go, "Oh, this is great. Like, I really feel like I'm playing D&D. It's all physical. I don't like playing online at all, like, if I can. But then I do need that D&D Beyond app. Like, I don't know everything that's going on. Like, I am using the phone to know I've not played every class. When someone has a question for me as the DM, I have no idea what that spell does because I've never
Yeah.
played that class or never cast that spell. So to have that phone, and I think I would be cheeky to then expect a player to not have that
Yeah.
phone at hand. If they have the question, they could also look it up themselves. But I think it's more like, it's not generalized. I think it's down to the individual, right? Like, there are people who spend their entire day on their phone, and then you'll text them like, "Are you good for the session tomorrow?" And they don't reply. And you go, "I know that you're on your phone all the time." And that's probably the same person that in the session is on their phone, and you know that they're not looking at something for your session because they don't even do it outside of the session. So
Yeah.
I think it's really like you've got your culprits, and hopefully you learn that from like that session 0 of who that person is. I think it's really good that you've got players who can go, "You don't have to do it." They kind of take a bit of that
Yeah.
kind of managerial role that you don't really want to have to put rules in on people. Like,
Yeah.
they're adults, so it's a tough one. But I prefer playing without. I prefer playing on the app, and I do think quite quickly you run out of room on the sheets, and I can't even read
Oh,
those writing.
100%.
So
Yeah,
it's
100%.
like chicken scratch.
Yeah.
But also, again,
Actually,
should you ever struggle with players, there's one very easy way to get the.
He actually got that. He forged that sword for this podcast.
So I was gifted that by one of my oldest D&D friends, Shoni, who is having a clear out. She prefers axes, and
Oh yeah.
obviously,
of course.
obviously, it's completely blunt. Like, the worst you're going to do is drop it on your toe and have a bit of a bruise. It's completely blunt and ornamental, but it's really good for poking with because where it's not sharp at the end, and it's got such a long reach, so you can just go across the entire table with no effort and just be like, "Excuse me, excuse
Hey,
me, pay attention."
Smack their phone out of their
Nice.
hand with a sword.
Terry, what was you going to say? Was you going to say
I,
another
I was
big thing?
I was going to also take this opportunity because, like Mitchell's been saying, room full of DMs. You said session 0, and I wanted to ask some people because so the way that I learned how to play, and it's my favorite thing ever, is people show up to session 0 with like my preference, and I can't always get people to do this because people always they have an idea of a character they want to play, and that's
Mm.
completely fine. But my absolute ideal situation is everybody shows up with nothing to session 0 and we do character creation as a group,
Okay.
like because I don't think there's anything wrong with like multiple people wanting to play the same class in a campaign or and stuff like that, whatever. I think it's for me, everybody showing up with nothing just means that we can all set an expectation together because it's supposed to
Hmm.
be like a shared story. And you can still come up with a joke character, but it'll be a joke character that's either like a little bit like more like, geared towards the story that we're playing or a little bit more balanced for the party that we have.
Mm.
Because in the one campaign I'm playing in at the moment, the DM like let us all come up with characters before we met up, and three of us wanted to be a cleric. Um, so we reworked it, and it's fine. And now I'm just playing a warlock who's a mortician. But like, yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but
Weirdly, I have never been part of or run a proper session zero.
Oh, okay. What? So you just go
Same.
get the people you want to play,
no,
they go,
thank you.
okay, and then you go straight into the campaign.
So yeah, so I will speak to what I generally do is, if it's a group, I've got regular groups that I play with in person,
Mm.
but if it's a group who, for example, I'm running online, so my cult group recently have finished that campaign and moved on to a D&D campaign. And so it's the idea of sort of like before we started Cult, it was like, okay, this is the setting of it. This is the sort of content, the sort of story I'm looking to go for. This is the basis. Tell me if there's anything that you really don't like in it, because Cult is a very heavy going horror game. And
Mm.
so it's just like, if there's anything, I've said, your fear of monkeys, or chimpanzees or whatever, let me know about that so I don't, put you in the chimp enclosure in the zoo. Or maybe I will, it's Cult.
100%, I would have
But,
written that like Siri, remember to put chimpanzees into the next
but
session.
but it was nice because everybody came to me with their own ideas. So it meant that nobody felt they had to go off of anybody else's ideas, but it all fed back to me. And then I was able to sort of add bits into my basis of the story. So everybody had their little thing, their little reason, their little moment. And I found that that works really well and allows for more creativity. I'm not against the idea of session zero. I just think that sometimes it's more interesting to not have a group trying to optimize their character builds and just
Within
let
each
them,
other, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
just let them be totally creative with it. And if they don't have a healer, as a GM, you throw in a few more potions. If they don't have a tank, then you gear it more towards other types of combat and things like
right.
that. So, yeah.
That's fair. I
Yeah.
think I think for me, I literally when they come to session zero, that's usually just seeing how they play with each other. They can bring a character. I always ask them to tell me in advance what that character
Mm.
is. But the one thing I expect them to do at the table is to roll their stats. Because the amount of times, like, I'll have one person who's famous for it could be a one shot, it could be on a West Marches server, it could be something that they're telling me about that they played with someone else, that their stats happen to be incredible every time. And I'm like, the odds of that being good every time, and the fact that you talk about that you brag about it, they brag about the stats more than the session they were playing, which is worrying in itself. And I'm like, I just can't be allowing that. Do you know what I mean? And that kind of
Um,
person usually takes over. And
co-
I don't want that. I want everyone to have their moment they feel needed.
controversial take, and I apologise for butting in here, but if it's a group who I know the players, so
Yeah.
obviously I will do that for a group that I may not know if I'm like running outside of home or something. But if a group of players I know, and G can back me up on this because I said it to our group,
Mm.
I said you can use point buy system. You can roll your stats, and I will just trust you to roll your stats and
Mhm.
be accurate. You can use standard point system or standard array rather, or just make up whatever stats you want. Don't bother rolling for any of it. Just create whatever you want. Because I have found that people who tend to make really overpowered characters start to not enjoy it when they just succeed on everything, and it
Yeah.
just becomes okay, you're great simulator. And and I find that if you give people that freedom and say, look, just put your stats in whatever you want. I don't care what numbers are on there. You can put 20 on everything if you want to. Not That's absolutely fine as long as you can justify it within the character. And I find that actually when you give people that much freedom, they're less likely to take the mickey.
Right. Okay.
So yeah,
Playing their
that's
own
just
game. It's a
yeah,
psychological game.
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I just did standard array in the end. I think I was
Mm,
like, I just do just standard
Yeah.
array
Mm,
for my character.
mm.
I
But
think yeah, it's so like, and I mean, everybody here is probably going to agree, but it's so boring to be like good at everything in this game. Like,
mm-hmm.
I
Mm.
love
Yeah.
like the warlock I'm currently playing. I've got two. I'm pretty sure I've got two different stats that are like at eights at the moment, you know? And it's so good because obviously I put myself in situations where I need to do the talking and it's like, all right, cool. Well, I've got a negative modifier to charisma every time I roll. Oh, what's that? I rolled a four, so it's actually going to be like a -1 now. Like, I think it's so much more fun to be bad at
mm,
stuff.
It's
Like,
even
yeah,
mm-hmm.
funnier when you have a player who the thing they're really good at, they go in confidently and hit a nat one, and on the flip side, a player who will have like that six in a charisma stat, and it'll be like
Mm-hmm.
it's the integral moment for some in the tense negotiations. For some reason, they're chiming in, they hit a nat 20. Those are the moments that
Mm.
just oh,
Yeah.
mwah.
I
I've
think
got a
play.
rogue like that at the moment who it just can't like they've got a good dexterity, but for the life of them cannot roll well on their stealth.
Yeah.
And like I don't know what it is, but it was like the first session, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna try and like just tail this person." Immediate natural one, and I was like, "How you can't make it up, can you? When you've got a rogue that's naturally good at stealth." But yeah,
Two
but I think
things
that
there.
like pushes, doesn't it? It pushes the like collaborative storytelling when you've
Yeah.
got people that are good at different things. So my party now kind of know, who's good at what. So we'll call upon those players to deal with those situations because they want to drive the story forward. But in some circumstances, they get themselves in trouble where they can't always do that. And then it's even funnier when it all falls apart at the table, especially for me watching it.
For that rogue, doing all like should be the best at it, right? And then failing every
Mm,
time. When that succeeds,
mm-hmm.
if
Yeah.
that rogue succeeded from the get-go, people go, well, you're a rogue. When that
Yeah.
rogue then succeeds, like 20 sessions in, finally,
Yeah.
people are going
Yeah.
to be like, they're going to be a hero. Like, people are going to be
Yeah.
like, you should be good at this anyway, but you finally did it, and now you're a champion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? That kind of thing might make them completely change how their character, like their personality, their character, that they
Mm-hmm.
think they're really good, they should be good, but the situation means they're not. And like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like I feel like good role playing is like when your roles genuinely determine how you then act as the character as
Yeah.
well. Rather than you can't just be
Mm-hmm.
annoyed by going, well, I'm perfect, you know.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I was going to say. Um, I think like failing is the best part of D&D. Whenever because that's the time where you have to wing it. When you think
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to make a decision to fail on purpose, right? Unless like it is a joke character. But when you think it will go well and you go, right, I'm the one with the good perception, I'll do it, and it doesn't, that's the
Mm.
perfect opportunity to like think in the moment how do I act around that, and for the DM as well, like all right, well now how do I describe that this person who can literally see in the dark cannot see the person in front of them, so
Yeah.
I think, and
Yeah.
that makes it so much more like alive. I think that makes it way more fun than, like you said earlier, Mitch, I'm just good, I'm just Mr. Great, like I just do this, I know what I'm doing, I'll get bored of that eventually. Not knowing how it's going to go is arguably why you turn up, because like life's a schedule,
Yeah.
and when it's not
Mm-hmm.
a schedule, that's what D&D's fun for.
I think also I think that you've sort of got control of yourself as a DM when you can make your players fail forward. So, for
Mm.
example, a character goes in, it's the integral moment. They absolutely need this to succeed. Then they roll the nat one. I generally find that a good DM can then go, okay, that has failed, but how can that fail positively? It's just like, it's like, I really need this. I need to knock that ladder so it comes down for me. And it's like, okay, you do that. You miss entirely, but the guard who was at the top of the ladder trying to shoot you with arrows, you miss the ladder and just don't rock into the back of the head. He goes falling down. You've taken out a guard, but now all the guards up there are now aware that you're there. So you've kind of failed with success,
Yeah,
if
yes.
that
you've
makes
got
Mm-hmm.
sense.
something. Yeah.
When
Yeah.
when you mentioned earlier, Mitchell, about like playing other systems, to like get inspiration, especially like when you're in a slump. the kids on bikes games. I love or like kids on broomsticks and all the other variations. I love the range like mechanic where it's like, okay, if you like fail by five or more or succeed by five or more, then like something different will happen. And I basically stole that whole cloth. I just call it threading the needle in my home games. So when somebody needs to get something really specific done, like when somebody wants to do like a fastball special or something ridiculous, I'm like, all right, cool. If you roll too well, you're going to do the thing really well, and it might backfire in your favor, or might backfire against you. And so I love coming up with situations like you said, like, okay, you really screwed the pooch on this, but the ladder bonks the guard in the head,
Mm.
So much fun to do that, just to figure out like how to figure out like turning a failure into a success, or alternatively, how to make a success more funny by making it a little bit of a failure. But you succeeded too hard, like
Pretty much. Oh well.
The time is on 2 minutes.
Yes, well, I was about to say. Well, I'm going to close it there. I do have one more question, but maybe we'll make that a little social piece, because I was going to say, what is the greatest moment in your DM experience? But I like the idea that maybe that you kind of just record that and send it in, and I'll put them together for
getting to be here talking about why we DM with 3 other fine individuals. That is why we do it.
Nailed it.
Amazing.
Yeah, and we can go. Bye.
Yeah. Okay, so today's lecture is sadly coming to a close. We're back again next week with the topic, have you ever been missold PPI? And as always, thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to join in on the D&D action, then please follow us on Instagram at How to Play D&D, or check out the link in our bio to join our Discord server. I've been Connor Kinsey, and you have been Terran in the top corner for me.
Hi, I'm Terran. Bye.
I'm G.
I'm Mitchell.
Everyone's links will be in the bio to the episode, and this has been Come. Good day.
What ending?